every once in a while, it's good to bring back the man, the myth, the legend, the man so cool they call him the Breen onto the channel to get a testing of the waters within comic books, maybe a state of the union. How are things going? Breen has been in the comic book hobby essentially his entire life. He's been there from the ups, the downs, and everything in between. How you doing, Breen?
I'm all right, Wes. Yeah, that was my Joe Corallo. He says hi.
So I personally think that DC, while they're not perfect, and they could certainly use some better stuff going on with Batman and Justice League and stuff like that, are actually doing much better today than they were doing at this time last year. I think they got a lot of really good series, easily led by the top big two comic book out there with Green Lantern. I think Aquaman's off to a very interesting start. I'm really enjoying Batman and Robin. What do you think about DC right now? Are you with me? Are you bullish?
To a point. I'm reading Superman regularly, Green Lantern, and anything, but any of the side specials. I'm looking forward to Green Lantern Corps. I really like the first issue of Aquaman, and once we committed to doing this, I figured if I'm going to be talking about All In, I should probably go check out the flagship book. So I went and picked up the first 3 issues of Justice League Unlimited and read those. It's interesting. It's kind of, I don't know, it's almost like a benevolent big brother approach. I don't know how it's going to go. Maybe there's a callback to the early days of the Silver Age when there's so many of them, they just send out a couple of them to do certain jobs, because that's how they used to do the old stories in the 60s. But I am kind of interested, all of them being in the same place, including the Titans and the Challengers, etc. I'm kind of looking forward to see where that goes. I've been reading, and the Justice Society, I guess, is based out of there too now, and I have been reading that, and I kind of like that.
So with the Justice Society with Jeff Lemire, I'm finding myself in quite the quandary. There are a lot of characters there that I really like, but I feel like I'm overwhelmed with the amount of characters. It feels like the team is 2 or 3 times too big than it should be. And it felt like the first issue should have been the second issue, and the second issue should have been the first issue. And I'm having a little bit of trouble really buying into what they're trying to pull out in the Justice Society of America book, because I feel like there's too much stuff happening all at once.
Well, a large membership is not unique to this take. David Goyer and Jeff Johns had a boatload of characters in their turn of the century, the first Justice Society run. To me, it seems like it's almost like Infinity Inc. 40 years later. There's a lot of characters from the old Infinity Inc. series, and as far as I'm intrigued that Obsidian is not who he says he is, and he's working for the bad guys, and so there, that was a neat twist. It's like the last page of the first Justice League, where Airwave is saying, "Gee, they're awfully nice to me." Now I'm kind of conflicted because I'm here to kill them all. Yes. So spoilers. And I'm not reading Batman and Robin at the moment, but I am reading Batman and Robin Year One. So
I would highly recommend Batman and Robin when Phil Kennedy Johnson takes over. I think it's been absolutely amazing. It's easily the second best book at DC, in my opinion.
Okay. And what do you consider to be the best?
Green Lantern.
Okay.
And I think Batman and Robin's just a step below that one. And maybe Superman's next. But there's some other good stuff right now that I'm really, really enjoying. But Batman and Robin has been unexpectedly good because Phil Kennedy Johnson is actually kind of growing out the Damian character in ways that I didn't think that they would allow him to do, to be completely honest.
Now, one thing I like about what DC is doing right now, and I probably will check that out, is they seem to be tightening the continuity a little bit, at least amongst like the core all-in titles, because I noticed that they've been using a lot of footnotes tying back to Absolute Power and whatnot. And although I didn't read that, I kind of got intrigued by what came out of it. And yeah, especially in Superman, I know they've been doing this for basically since the beginning of the series, but I read the Lex Luthor special, and I think that's the most interesting thing they're doing at DC right now, because one of the hardest things there is to do with characters that have been around for 60, 70, 80 years is to find a new and interesting way to present them. We've seen every version of Lex Luthor. We've never seen one who legitimately wants to change. And it started when he was in prison at the beginning of the series. And then when he lost his memories during Absolute Power, now he's not sure he wants to get him back because he knows the man he was before, and he wants to be the man he is now. Although, if you read the special, that may change. Now, I'm interested to see where that goes. Because if he reverts back to being a mustache twirling bad guy, then he just becomes the cliched villain again. So I'm hoping that there's some nuance to this.
All signs point to him becoming the mustache twirling bad guy. Did you realize that the music that Lex Luthor is playing that ends up calming baby Clark Kent to sleep, and then Clark Kent and then Lois Lane here later on, is supposedly the theme song from Superman the movie? Thought that was pretty cool. Otherwise, I thought that special was fine, but I didn't think it was absolutely like must-read stuff. But the art by Eddie Barrows was really good. I love Eddie Barrows, though.
So do I.
Yeah. Are you excited for Hush 2? Is that going to get you back in on Batman? Jeff Loeb, Jim Lee returning, doing interiors, for 6 issues.
Okay, I'm one of the people. I've been around so long that I wasn't necessarily blown away by Hush, even though that's like the top tier story for a lot of Batman fans. But I liked it enough to where I'm definitely going to come back for that. And this will be the first time I've been buying Batman and Superman at the same time, probably since the early days of Rebirth, before Tom King, took the car and drove it into a ditch. So that's, and I as someone who's been doing this for almost 50 years now, it was for years, it was inconceivable to not buy Batman and Superman every month. And when we get to Marvel, we'll talk about that with other titles. So it's, you got Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, Aquaman. So that's 4 of the core titles that core characters that I'm supporting. Unfortunately, I have less than no desire to read The Flash or Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman has been bad. We've had a couple of announcements, specifically with Joanne Stair. We got the Harley Quinn Fartacular, a Fire and Ice sequel, which I think just almost like rains on the parade and what they're actually achieving in DC All In. We're like, don't worry, guys, we're still going to make bad comics too. And I'm like, I don't know if that's the message that I want to hear right now.
Well, if you go back to some of the videos we've made in the past, one of the things I like to say is nobody shoots themselves in the foot better than DC. Yeah. Now, as far as the Harley Quinn Fartacular, if DC were firing on all cylinders, you could just dismiss that as a joke for whoever might be interested.
Like Lex in the City this week.
Yeah, but you're also getting, like you said, a Fire and Ice sequel. You're getting that. The Secret Six. I can't imagine that being anything other than a train wreck. So it's almost like they're trying to reach comic book fans, but they're trying to keep that, Twitter audience that pirates things and then bitches about what they pirated.
Yeah. So I think DC is in not a great state, but certainly a much better state and kind of trending upwards. If maybe we can get a good writer on Batman, things will obviously be even better. Superman is taking a very interesting direction. When I go over to Marvel, I don't even know what to say. I think Incredible Hulk is pretty good most months. I kind of like Hell Hunters, but that's going to be a mini series. Chris Claremont is coming back for some, Wolverine things that are all mini series and continuity 30 years ago, and I enjoy those. But the entire X-Men line, I think, is atrocious. This 8 Deaths of Spider-Man does not have me really excited for Joe Kelly coming on to ASM. Captain America, they just keep rebooting it. The Iron Man writer is somehow worse than Dan Slott was on Iron Man. And it feels like Marvel are actively like hurting themselves. I don't think anybody is really enjoying anything at Marvel these days. Really, maybe than Ultimate Spider-Man, which I think is fine, but it could be so much better if there was actually Spider-Man in the book.
I'll address that in a minute. As far as Marvel, they are taking full advantage of being the market leader that only has to spell their name right to maintain it. And they've got built-in advantages that DC will never have. Because I always say, until DC can trade for Spider-Man and Wolverine, they're never going to be number one. So they're DC's like the Avis of right now. They're behaving like Avis. They're number two. They're trying harder. Marvel is just from an outsider's perspective. They're just phoning in virtually their entire line. I don't hear anybody talking about anything they're doing in the regular continuity other than continuing to complain that Marvel just will not give fans what they want. I do not understand why, when all you have to do is put Peter and Mary Jane's marriage back together, and not only will you increase sales by probably 40%, you'll certainly increase the number of people that are actually reading the title when it comes out, because I maintain that is the most bought, bagged, boarded, boxed, and forgotten comic of anything on the market today. And I said, I don't, I said Spider-Man, Iron Man, Avengers, X-Men, Fantastic Four. I'm not buying any of them. And that was another thing that was unthinkable for decades.
Fantastic Four isn't awful right now. I think it's probably hitting at like a 50% rate. Every other issue is definitely worth reading. But it's always the goofy, like jokey issues. Anytime they actually have to do like some interesting science or go cosmic or anything, it feels like Ryan North isn't really up to the task, and it's leading up to this One World Under Doom. And, Dr. Doom became the Sorcerer Supreme, I think 6 months ago at this point, and they never led up to it in Fantastic Four. And Ryan North's going to be doing that event, and they never even really mentioned it until the last issue. And I find it just kind of frustrating. Like, do you hear anybody excited for One World Under Doom? That should be the biggest event Marvel does this decade.
No, I don't. And, did we make Dr. Doom the focal point of the Marvel Universe so he could have a team up with Rocket Raccoon and need help from a raccoon because he wasn't smart enough to do something? I mean, I think it's supposed
to be independent. That's like the JMS one-shot weird team-ups that they're doing, but it's odd timing.
Yeah, it's hard to take anything they do seriously. As far as right now I'm reading Ultimate Spider-Man. I disagree with you on that. I think it's fine the way it is because I've been reading Spider-Man stories for 50 years, and I've gone back and read all the other ones. We've seen every conceivable take on the character except for this one. If what's going on around the character is interesting enough, and it is for me, I can see where it's not for everyone, but I like the way they're doing this version of him. I like a nicer Jonah. I like the Jonah and Ben dynamic. And I like the fact that it's, at least through the first year, it's had very little interaction with the rest of the Ultimate Universe, which I have less than no interest in. But I do like that. I mean, maybe a few more Spider-Man action scenes would be nice. But we also got to remember he's not fully formed, and he's learning as he goes, and I think that's helping. And we'll see how this storyline going now with Craven's last hunt goes. But
Craven's next hunt,
last. I mean, there have been more Craven last hunts than retirement tours.
But I love Marco Cicchetto, and I think his take on Spider-Man just looks like $1 million. And I want to see more of that kind of stuff. Although we have gotten a lot of Dave Messina kind of fill-in stuff. And I guess it's kind of grown on me over time because the first couple of times he did it, it was just like a date issue. There was no action whatsoever. And it was just people's reflections in wine glasses and stuff like that. And I didn't like it. But he did finally get an issue with some Spider-Man. And I thought Dave Messina looked better there. So I certainly appreciated the backup artist in Amazing Spider-Man more than I did Absolute Batman.
You mean Ultimate Spider-Man?
I'm sorry, Ultimate Spider-Man, rather than I did Absolute Batman, which I thought was a terrible villain artist.
I will give whoever the editor of Ultimate Spider-Man is. I've got to assume it's not Nick Lowe because it's good. I
believe you're correct. I think it's Will Moss, but I might be incorrect on that.
When Chichetto can't do the next issue or two, they bring in somebody that's a 9 to his 10, which, given the sorry state of art in a lot of comics, that's good. They didn't have to because that's a top-selling book, but they at least did the best they could to keep the quality.
Did you try out any of the other Ultimate Universe things? Did you try out the Ultimates or Black Panther or Ultimate X-Men?
Not this time around. I was a big supporter of the Ultimate Universe 20 years ago, and at this point, I've been let down so much by Marvel. It's interesting. I've always been a Marvel first guy, but really, I noticed that it's DC that always draws me back in. They did it with Rebirth. They did it with
Dawn of DC got you a little bit.
Dawn of DC, and then now with All In. And Marvel, again, I said Marvel just kind of exists, whereas DC seems to, at least, there's, I still think there's some kind of civil war there where half of them want to make good comics, and I really wish they'd, kind of wish that Jeff Johns would be publishing Ghost Machine through DC so he can still keep his foot in the door with some of the other properties. But
now you mentioned Jeff Johns and Ghost Machine. I think we both agree Marvel's not hot right now. Where I'm finding the most satisfaction and enjoyment, and the vast majority of the books that I'm really bought into and enjoying, it is the indie scene. Ghost Machine's an enormous part of that. The Energon Universe at Skybound is an enormous part of that. I'm really enjoying a lot of things going around there. We're getting some really cool, like nostalgia-based, old school books like Flash Gordon, I think is great. I think Space Ghost is great. What are you thinking on the indie scene? Are you finding yourself more turned towards indies these days?
Well, you just named two of my favorite books. I think I look forward to Space Ghost as much as anything now. And
even Ultimate Spider-Man?
It's right up there.
Yeah.
It's weird. I wasn't a cartoon kid because we were a one TV.
Yeah, you had audio dramas on the radio because there's no TV.
We'd all sit around the radio and we were one TV family, and this just in. I never had control of it, so I was never a big Space Ghost fan, so I didn't know that much about the character. But I've gone back and watched some of the old cartoons, and I think it's fantastic. David Pepos, it's the first time and last time I'll ever use this quote, chef's kiss.
It is really great, and the Jonathan Lau art on it. It's the best kind of version of Batman and Robin that we got in a long time, where it's a masked kind of darker kind of hero with these two kids that are kind of opening him up and making him become more of a person again. I love it.
Yeah, and Johnny Quest. That's another. That was a great miniseries. Flash Gordon. Jeremy Adams writing fantastic. Will Conrad. Why he isn't working for the big two, I'll never know. But because his art is tremendous. The Dick Tracy series is excellent. And I was never a big Dick Tracy fan per se. So if the people that read all the old comic strips find flaws in it, I wouldn't know where to look. So it's working for me. There's been a ton of just excellent miniseries. I don't know if you and Drew ever touched on Kosher Mafia.
Yeah, but it's for some reason Mad Cave makes it really difficult to get our hands on review copies before it's time to review that week's thing. But it's got the writer that was on Nottingham, and he's really, really talented, and it's a really interesting story, very period piece that really works.
It's one of the best things I've read in the past couple of years. There's series that nobody picked up on, like Sanction, which I think might have also been Mad Cave, which was set in 1987 Russia about covering up a series of murders. I said there's no shortage of excellent indies. I said, I was a little old, a little late to the party for the Energon stuff, but I want that to be successful because the industry needs successful indies because DC's about halfway there and Marvel's just not.
Well, and the good thing is Transformers is almost kind of made itself like a flagship almost at this point, to where it's regularly, at least on the numbers that we do see, kind of outselling a Batman or an ASM, which I find to be surprising because we're well over a year into Transformers. And certainly I'm loving the G.I. Joe stuff from Josh Williamson. My personal kind of coolest thing that I'm enjoying the most really is the Ghost Machine stuff. I think Redcoat is a fun book. I think Geiger is really, really interesting, but I am so in on Rook Exodus. It's not even funny. I think Jason Fabok is just absolutely annihilating that book with the art. It's probably the best illustrated comic book in the entire world right now, in my opinion. Unfortunately, it's on a hiatus right now. Did you ever get a chance to check out Rook?
Rook, in my humble opinion, doesn't even have the best art at Ghost Machine.
Well, Ghost Machine is very, very high quality.
That honor goes to Redcoat and Brian Hitch. I think he's doing the best work of his career.
That last issue with the giant worm was spectacular.
The last two issues leading up to that with the Albert Einstein's death and the murderous family. I mean, those are incredible. And Hyde Street, I'm absolutely loving that.
Yes.
Even the titles, I'm not. I said, Rook is never going to get me as much as it gets most of you guys because I'm just
You're not a sci-fi guy.
I'm not a dystopian future guy. Geiger's interesting enough with enough going on to where I can. I think I can get into that a little bit more. I do enjoy Rook. And I'm even getting a kick out of Hornsby and Halo, and Rockefellers. I think they're pretty much hitting across the board for me. I think Mark Millar's doing. I'm all in on what he's doing right now.
That finale on Nemesis Rogues Gallery was simply phenomenal. It's a perfect comic book. If it's not perfect, it's as close to perfect as you can get. Like, it was perfect. It was so good.
I know he watches all your videos.
Does he?
Yes. Mr. Millar, please let the next Nemesis be the last. Give us a satisfying end to this character that is, I love it, but at some point it's like, oh God, the Joker again. Can somebody please just kill him?
We need to have Kick-Ass kill him.
That would be fantastic.
That would be the satisfying ending and the ending that Nemesis really deserves.
Because it's just like, at this point, I'm thinking someone could throw him in the sun and he could find his way back out. But that doesn't take anything away from the enjoyment. Although I think of this round, I think my favorite was Prodigy.
No, Prodigy was really good. It was very interesting, kind of opening up his family with his father and his brother that you never really met, and kind of some of the things that he had went through, and some very interesting things going on there. Getting to Mars, selling off the planet, cool stuff.
And your Nightclub. I think the second series has been light years better than the first.
I agree,
and I cannot wait to see how this ends.
You know what's crazy? So he's announced Vatican City. He's announced a new Huck. I think there's another Nemesis coming out, and there's another book that he's announced. But supposedly he's going to have twice that many in 2025. They haven't even announced like the other 4 books.
And all written by him?
Yes.
God, that man must be able to knock one out in an evening.
Yeah, he's a pro apparently. He can knock that stuff out of the park. But yeah, I'm really enjoying the indie scene. It's just so much fun right now. It feels very vibrant to where there's just anything that you could want in a comic book, you're going to be able to find a good version of it, kind of on the indie scene. And, I think it's been the saving grace for the last year. Even though DC's getting better, it hasn't caught up to the overall quality out there on indies.
No, I agree. But it's now making. I mean, I've gotten to the point to where there would be Wednesdays where there was nothing there to go in for. There are enough good indies right now and enough good stuff coming out of DC that I can at least, now I'm low end is 4 or 5, high end 8 or 9. And that's
a good place to be.
It's been a while. Yeah. I mean, it'll never be the 30 or so titles every week when Marvel and DC were both going great. And I'll take it.
Absolutely. I do want to say thank you very much to Mr. Breen. And if you like what he's got to offer, he will be with us this Saturday on the Comics Aficionados, talking all the geek stuff with us. And I do want to invite you to come visit me on the Patreon. There will be a longer version of this because Breen and I are going to keep talking here. Link in the video description. It'll be out there for everybody. Hope to see you there very soon.